Hello. Hi there. Hi, everyone. I'm Dara Starr Tucker, and I'm so glad to be with you today. I want to thank Miss Gail Boyd for having me on the program on alternative venues for jazz today. I'm really excited to be talking to you all today and going live. If you are following me on my personal pages, Dara Starr Tucker, or my personal page, this is just an outlet that Miss Gail Boyd, who's an organizer and an advocate and a curator for jazz, she has created this avenue for jazz artists to be able to talk about what they do and just, I guess, anything we want to talk about and discussing upcoming music and our history with the music and all kinds of things. So I thought this would be a really cool thing. I'm going to be putting my glasses on and taking them off. I thought this would be a really cool thing to do. I don't like the glare, so I don't want to be talking to you all while you're looking at light coming through my glasses. But I have an album coming out on June 3rd. I have a single that is out right now called Standing on the Moon. So I wanted to just get the word out about that and kind of do some reflection and kind of talk about where I come from and where I'm going and get to know you guys a little bit better. I'm seeing some folks popping up in the comments, and I'm glad to have you all joining me today. And hello, Rolanda. So I guess this is supposed to be just a little bit loosey goosey, which once I get going, I don't have a problem with loosey goosey. So we'll get into it. So we're supposed to talk about kind of how we got into jazz. And I don't know, music for me is such a fluid thing. I grew up as the child of a minister. So my father was a music minister. So I grew up in a very music focused household. And he was a writer and a singer. I had 6 brothers and sisters. And our parents taught us all to sing together. My mother taught really me and my older 2 sisters how to sing together in church. So that's how I started out. So my foundation is gospel music, like a lot of folks who come from where I come from. My foundation is gospel. So I grew up with, the Hawkins family and the Clark sisters and the Winans and James Cleveland and Andre Crouch and all of those folks. Just what would be classic music now in the gospel arena. So that's really my foundation, and that's where everything builds from and grows out of. So I started kind of sneaking away at certain times, and I joke that I would secular music was forbidden in our household, so I would take the little radio that I got for Christmas, me and my sister got for Christmas, and I would sneak that under my pillow, and I would listen to whatever I could find. I was one of those, is back in the olden days when folks really used to listen to the radio. And thank you very much, Crystal Devon. Someone's talking about my commentary. I'll get into that later on down the road. But yeah, we were not allowed to listen to gospel, to anything other than gospel music. So secular music was out really growing up, technically. But we were hearing it everywhere. We were hearing it, you'd go out to the grocery store and elevators and shopping malls, and, you'd go and be around your friends and stuff. And so we knew what was going on. So I'd sneak away and I'd listen to this and that. But a lot of what I ended up veering towards was really classic music. I just loved music from the 40s, the 50s, and the 60s. And at that time, if you got down to the lower end of the dial, you could find some real interesting stuff if you were, crate digging, as I call it. And I would find big band music and all kinds of things. And I started to discover some jazz vocalists at that time, like Mel Torme and Sarah Vaughan and Nancy Wilson and all kinds of people. And a lot of instrumental stuff, like I said, big band stuff like Tommy Dorsey and, Stan Kenton and folks like that. So that was my little rebellion, Thank you very much, Jermaine. That was my little rebellion. And then I started to discover singer-songwriters like James Taylor. And we would turn on our little easy listening station and Gordon Lightfoot and John Denver and Carole King, Paul Simon and Art Garfunkel. I discovered a lot of the singer-songwriter music of the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s. Dan Fogelberg and Stephen Bishop, folks like that. So that has a huge influence on my writing. I would say classic music from all the way from the 30s through the 80s. You're going to hear a lot of that show up in the music that I write. And so how I got into jazz, I don't even know. I can't even tell you. It's like, when does the night become the day? I don't know. I really don't know. I'm saying hi to folks in the comments. Hi there, Alan Shea. Someone says, love your coverage of Black history. Thank you so much. Charlene McKinney. Um, hi there, Michaela Osheim. I don't know when I got into jazz. It was a slow burn kind of thing. And it started out with a lot of, I would say, really kind of square music, kind of corny music. Like people get upset when I call Johnny Mathis square, but he's a little bit square. But I loved Nat King Cole, and I loved people like Rosemary Clooney back in the day, and just vocalists who had a very clear tone and who enunciated well and who just focused on the melody. That was a lot of what I started to get into, Dean Martin and people like that. Um, so it wasn't until I got a little bit older that I started to discover some real straight ahead jazz singers like Carmen McRae and even Ella and Sarah Vaughan and Dinah Washington and folks who were more influenced by R&B. That came a little bit later when I went to college. So I went to school for international business and German studies at a small liberal arts college, a Christian college there in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which is where I grew up. Wanted to go to UCLA, wanted to go to USC. My father, who was a minister, was not having it at all. So I ended up going to a small Christian college and, made some good friends there, had some great professors there. But I did not feel that I had a real grip on the language, on the German language. And so I wanted to study internationally, or I wanted to live, somewhere where I could learn the German language a little bit better. So I decided a couple of years after graduating college, and this is in the early 2000s, I decided to move to Switzerland and just be an au pair for a year, because that was really at that point one of the only options that would have been open to me, to just get up and relocate across the world. But I was going to do it however I could. So I relocated to Interlaken, Switzerland, which is in the western part of Switzerland. It's near the capital, which is Bern. It's about 50 kilometers outside of the capital of Bern. So beautiful, beautiful, gorgeous land there. And I had the opportunity to, I took care of children. I, hung out with lots of guest workers and practiced the German language, which is what I was there to do. And got into some other stuff as well. But that was really where I began to write. So I had grown up in church singing with my brothers and sisters. We sang in harmony, and we traveled all over the country with our parents singing. My father developed music ministry programs. So my whole life had been very much music and ministry focused. And then I went to the small, like I said, private Christian college. And so the Switzerland experience was my opportunity to really break away from all of that and kind of discover the type of music that spoke to me personally. So it was just a necessary experience. Thank you, Tyrone. It was a very necessary experience for me to break away and just, I like to say what I grew up with musically was Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. And then what we couldn't listen to was baby, baby, baby. So I was trying to find that middle ground between Jesus, 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 and baby, 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 because I don't know that I was identifying so strongly with the Jesus, Jesus, and the baby, baby felt a little bit salacious to me. But so the kind of music that I ended up focusing on when I moved to Switzerland and started to write was personal music. It was music that really resonated with me as a human being. And I just wanted to talk about life, and I wanted to talk about my own experiences in the world. And I didn't want to be constrained by, you have to talk about this or you have to talk about that or anything. I just want to talk about what I want to talk about. So I started writing. One of the first songs that I wrote was a song called, if you have heard any of my albums, then you might know a song, or been to any of my shows, then you might know a song called Beautiful Sun. And that song was written, it's on an album called The Sun Season. So if you find me under Dara Tucker, I'm on the music platforms under Dara Tucker, not Dara Starr Tucker. You'll find an album called The Sun Season, and it's all about there's just a celebration of light and joy and all of that. I started writing that album when I moved to Switzerland, or when I was in Switzerland, and just I was inspired by the beauty of that country. And so that, is just, that album is pure joy for me. But there was a song called Beautiful Sun that was written specifically about just the landscape and everything I was experiencing there. So that was a life-changing, life-altering experience for me to really kind of get in touch with that musical part of myself, outside of, the ministry context that I grew up with. And so then I connected with music in Switzerland, and then I needed to decide what to do after that. I had recently graduated, and I needed to figure out what was going on with my life. So I wanted to move to a city where I could perform, and I could write, and I could be around other creative people. And so I decided to move to Nashville. As I said, my family was from Tulsa, Oklahoma. And many of you know I've done some social commentary on the race massacre in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So there's a long history of just all kinds of historic things that went on in Tulsa. But that's actually where I'm from. And so I wanted to be close enough to home, I say, to be able to get home within 10-hour drive. If somebody had a baby, something tragic happened, or I just was feeling homesick, I wanted to be able to get home in a day. So I chose Nashville as a musical town that wasn't too big, wasn't overwhelming like New York or LA. So I wanted to go to Nashville and just write initially. That was how I saw myself, as a writer, initially. And so I just got out and ended up performing more. I knew that I loved the standards. I would watch musicals constantly on on television, and I knew all of these Broadway songs and all of these show tunes and all of these great American songbook things. And I'm like, I could sing this stuff. I think I could sing that. And so I did. I just kind of got into that. I fell into to performing at a lot of jazz venues in Nashville, Tennessee, and that was kind of how my career began. And so everything just sort of springboarded from there. I think I found I didn't really have the gumption to deal with the political scene around trying to get involved in writing for country or Americana in Nashville. That if you know anything about the city, it's there's a network, and there's there are cliques that exist, and unless you're really willing to dedicate yourself to permeating those cliques and just working that system, then writing for country and Americana it's not something that's easy to do, especially, I'll say, for a Black woman. Especially for a Black woman. I think a lot of people do not have the perception that that's something that you are particularly supposed to be doing. And I can't say that anyone actively blocked me in that world, but I can say that I never really felt welcome in that world. I couldn't really see myself writing for country, but if you listen to a lot of my music, you're going to hear that Americana influence. I mean, some of my favorite artists are Americana. Jason Isbell is one of my favorite contemporary writers, and I mentioned Gordon Lightfoot and John Denver, and there's all kind of folks within that genre that I love. And thank you so much, Alan Shea. And so you're going to hear that influence reflected, but I found that world difficult to permeate in Nashville. So I focused on jazz. I just kind of, I found a community of people that were welcoming and receptive to what I was doing. And it worked out eventually. I mean, it always takes longer to do what you think you want to do than what you think it should. And in my mind, when I left Switzerland and I came to Nashville, I was under the impression I literally was saying, oh, I'll just be here six to 12 months, and then I'll move on and I'll go to New York or LA. I mean, I was there 13 years. And people told me, like, oh, no, it's going to be longer than you think. I was like, oh, well, I'm not going to be one of those people that ends up hanging out in this town for 10 years. I was there for 13 years. But you know what? I met my husband there. He plays bass for me. He works in a managerial role for me. And we have kind of sojourned this thing together. It's been good. And it was what I needed. But I was very much ready to move beyond Nashville. I mean, I was fortunate to win a couple of awards for doing jazz there. I had pretty much done everything I could do in Nashville. I had ascended the heights. There was really nothing more in the world of jazz to accomplish in Nashville. So I was ready to get out long before I got out. I was ready to get out. So I moved to New York for a couple of years, and then now I've relocated to the Philadelphia area. So that's where I am now. But yes, I can see the comments, Mr. Ethan. If you all have questions that you want to ask, please feel free. I'm going to try to keep a monitor of the comments. No, I would not say that I'm famous, Ethan. I'm social media famous, and that ain't the same thing. And no, I don't do country music at all. I'm mostly considered to be a jazz singer. Thank you, Cedric. And I talk about my story a lot, and you'll hear I plan to do more storytelling around, my experiences. I put out a video which you'll see on my page if you had not seen on my Facebook page or wherever you follow me on social media. But I've put out a video about the current single that I have out, which is called Standing on the Moon. If you all are not following me on Spotify or Apple Music or wherever you find music, then you can go to those platforms and follow me under Dara Tucker. I go by Dara Starr Tucker, my full name on most social media platforms, but on the music platforms, they will not change my name over to my full name. So you'll find me under Dara Tucker. But the way I dealt with that is that my next album is going to be called Dara Starr Tucker. So if you go to the music platforms to search for me now, you're going to find me. You're going to find my album. But that is coming out on the 3rd of June, my next album, which half of it is my original music. I told you I started writing in Switzerland, and half of it will be cover songs, and not really necessarily Great American Songbook stuff, but some stuff from the 70s and some stuff from I'm doing a Billie Eilish cover, and that's going to be my newest single that's coming up in about a month or so. But the current single that I have available called Standing on the Moon is one of my songs. And so I have a storytelling video that's on my Facebook page. And you can kind of watch that video and understand more about what that song is about, because it's super, super dense lyrically, and a lot of it goes by so fast. So I think stopping and taking time to talk about the lyrics is really, really important. Hi there, Kurt Cavalar Sterling, watching from St. Vincent. Good to have you here. Thank you, Cedric. He says he's heard the music, and it's amazing. Thank you very much, Cedric. For those of you who know me from my social commentary and you have taken time to listen to the music, I value that so much. I really want to say that I appreciate those of you who have taken time to listen to the music, because that's really what I do. That's what I am. I am a musician, and I just happen to do social commentary as well. So it's an interesting thing to have developed such a following for the social commentary that I do, when my actual vocation is music. So I never want to lose sight of that. I never want to lose sight of the music. And I am constantly trying to find ways to push past the algorithm, because as you probably have noticed, the algorithm does not push my music out in the way that it does the social commentary. Is that social commentary stuff? It's like, it's sticky. And I'm glad to have found something that is sticky, because it has allowed people who would not otherwise have heard my music to hear my music. But we don't want to, I don't want to lose the music. I don't want to lose that focus. And so you're going to see some storytelling things from me about this current album. Looking forward to putting together a piece about this next single, which is a Billie Eilish number. And then we'll be releasing, as I said, the album in June. Thank you, Tim Christopher says, love your social commentary, just starting to really get into your music. Thank you. Thank you so much, Tim. Y'all get a gold star from me, man. Y'all go and find the music, and that just that warms my heart so much. But I started getting into social commentary right around the time that, the election was happening, and just the George Floyd thing and Breonna Taylor. And it was like, I had so much to say. There was so much that was going on. I mean, there was just a cauldron that was welling up within me. And I thought, am I just a musician? Is this the only thing that I am? Will people accept me as a commentator? Will they accept me as doing more than this? And this is during the pandemic, when everybody was hunkered down inside. And so I got, some updated film equipment. I had always put together film and video projects, and I would gather musicians when I lived in Tulsa. I would get my musician friends and I would do packages on them. I would do like little 5 to 7 minute pieces where I would do a little mini documentary on their lives. And so that was kind of one of my first forays into storytelling. And I have always loved documentary, and I've always been a film buff and have, loved informational pieces like that. So I just decided, like, look, I have something to say. I really have to, I just can't be concerned with whether or not people can accept, will accept this from me, whether they only see me as a singer and want me to shut up. I decided that it was my job to disappoint some folks. If some folks were disappointed that I was speaking out and talking about social issues and cultural issues, well, then they were just going to have to be upset, you know. And that was a place I had to find within myself to just be like, you know what, you can't stay in this people pleasing space all your life and expect to get where you're supposed to get. If you got something to say, if like church folks say, if there's a word in your mouth, then you better speak that thing. And I'm responsible. If I don't get out there and do what I know I'm supposed to do with my life, then I've got to be accountable for that at the end of my life. So I just decided to step out and just do what I could to speak to the situation, the situations or whatever that were bubbling up at that time and that are still with us. Reading one more comment, Walter Dansler says, I feel you on the music from everywhere, no matter what kind, has messages that are so important to many people of this world. Yeah, that was definitely emphasized growing up. Different kinds of music. My father, like I said, was a music minister. Thank you, Tyrone. Please do. My father was a music minister and he was very open. He studied classical music. There's another form of music that they introduced us to growing up. My father worked for a pretty large ministry in Detroit, Michigan. We moved all around the country growing up. So I got to experience, all kinds of folks and, black and white and all kinds of church settings, little bitty churches and big old churches. And my father went to work for a pretty large ministry in Detroit, Michigan, and he did not have a background um, in reading music or anything like that. And then he found himself in that environment where he had, heads of music programs and things that were a part of that music program at that church. So he's like, I got to go get educated. So he went to Marygrove College in Detroit, Michigan, my father, when he was probably 35 or 40 years old, and started to study music. And this is being an experienced music minister for, 20 something years. He humbled himself and went and got that education. And that spoke it just spoke so loudly to us at the time that we have to continue to just take in, new information. We are never finished learning in life or in music. And so he was a wonderful example of that for us. But, I am a product of all of my influences. Thank you, Inga Red. She says your social info has been amazing. I've learned a ton from you. Had no idea Tulsa Massacre, despite being at ORU many years. Yes, I was at ORU in Tulsa. So yeah, I'm sort of in an effort right now where I am is combining these identities. Okay, so I'm Dara Tucker in the music world. I'm Dara Starr Tucker as a social commentator. So these two things need to become one, which is why my album coming up June 3rd is going to be called Dara Starr Tucker. So this is a merging of those identities for me. And I just can't live in split personality world. It's not what I do. I have a podcast called I'm All Over the Place because I am all over the place. I try to embrace it all and accept it all. And if you follow my pages, then I'll be doing social commentary one day, and then you see me doing comedy the next day. I'm impersonating my mother, or I'm doing satire. I just put out a satirical piece on gun legislation yesterday. And then the next day you'll see me put up music. And then the next day you'll see me do a historical informational thing about, Sesame Street and how it was made for inner city kids. And you're going to get some of everything. So those who are up for the ride, one thing I can promise you is it's not going to be boring. It's not going to be dull. It will not be boring. And it has been an interesting journey. Thank you, Tyrone. I appreciate you saying that. It's been an interesting journey, to learn how to deal with a lot of the, thanks, Rita, to learn how to deal with a lot of the haterade, I would say. I deal with a lot of trolls. If you all follow me on Facebook, them comments be bumping. I mean, they just, sometimes they are just out of control, and I just have to shut it out. Sometimes you'll see me get in there and scrap with them a little bit, but for the most part, I just block and delete, or I just don't even I don't even go to the comments. And that's not something that I have been accustomed to having to deal with because, before the pandemic, I wasn't speaking out because I didn't want to be the person that was ruffling feathers. I didn't want to be the person that was just, being a bit of a problem because, especially as women, we're not taught to do that. We're not taught to, to take up space. So this is a process for me. This kind of learning how to be comfortable with just being exactly who I am in the world. Thank you, Inga. She says, "Love, you're all over the place. You're multi-talented and multifaceted, multi-talented for sure." She says, "Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Joseph." So I do. I won't use that terminology. Forget I'm on Facebook Live. I do hang with people who love variety and who can just accept it all. That's a really exciting thing for me. So, as I said, my new single, "Standing on the Moon," is under Dara Tucker. Thank you so much, Braden. Is under Dara Tucker on Spotify, on Apple Music, Amazon. Amazon has put us on a bunch of playlists. I'm so excited. And so we're waiting for Spotify to come through. Spotify is going to have to act right. But we've got a new single coming out very soon. And then the full album called Dara Starr Tucker is on is going to be on Spotify on June 3rd. So if you go to my profile, I believe you can pre-save the album. I will definitely put up a link to show you how you can pre-save the album. Those pre-saves matter. If you follow independent artists, be sure if they put out something that says, "Hey, go save this, put this in your playlist, pre-save this," all of that interaction matters so much, and it pushes us up in the algorithm. And like I said, even having, a million followers across all platforms, they are not going to let a million people hear about my upcoming album. And so that's up to the diehards to help me get the word out about that. But anytime you all can interact with the music, I so appreciate it. Sharing it, playing it, saving it, listening to it. It just means so much to me. It means so much to me. Thank you, David. David says, "Just be true to yourself. It's the best one can do." And I agree. I wasn't raised to be that way. I was raised in a very tight, so-called religious environment where we were constantly being, theoretically wrapped over the knuckles. If we got out of line, it was just, we were raised to be obedient and, not shake things up, especially as Black folks. So you don't want folks to see you as, a troublemaker and all of this stuff. Is that those respectability politics and things. I was raised with a lot of that. And so I've had to push past a whole lot of that stuff and just learn how to be true, as David said, to who I am and to the message that I know I'm supposed to deliver in the way that I'm supposed to deliver it. So I love the social media stuff and I love the breakdowns. That's one of my favorite things to do ever. So my newest breakdown is on, what is my newest breakdown on? The Girl from Ipanema. And I just posted that today. So there's a little interesting, backstory behind the song, The Girl from Ipanema. So that's the newest breakdown that I have. But appreciate you all listening to me talk about the music. I'm really looking forward to being in more of a musical space. Hi there, Neat Indigo Christmas says, "Just tuned in. Real talk. Didn't even know you were an artist. I seriously just thought you were just knowledgeable. Sister, dropping knowledge. Then I heard your music, but that was recent. God bless the knowledge and the art." Thank you so much, Neat. And I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Yes, David, used to be called uppity Negroes. There's a lot of, I could do an entire breakdown on what it is like to be raised as a Black person who is taught to be a good representative of Black folks. You don't get out of line and you don't be the ones that are protesting and shaking things up. You just get in there and show them you can put on a suit and a dress and you can speak well. And I appreciate a lot of that instruction. But I think, in my life, some stuff had to be rustled up and shaken. And I'm glad it was, because I feel like the world needs, more voices that can speak to a multitude of people. And I hope that's what I'm able to do. Someone's asking, Joseph Kearney's asking if I'm coming to the Atlanta area. I will certainly let you know, Joseph. Atlanta has been a hard nut to crack. So if you have an inroads into Atlanta, you just let us know. I think we're we're talking to someone this week about the possibility of Atlanta. But I think my time is up at 5:30. So I thank you all so much for tuning in. And please be on the lookout for the music. Go to Dara Tucker on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, and just interact with the music as much as you possibly can. This is my way of saying that. And thank you to those of you who are listening. And looking forward to catching you in music really, really soon. Hope to get to your town. I will be in Nashville. Go to my website, darastartucker.com, and it has my schedule. I'm going to be in Nashville doing a CD release show. I'm going to be in Tulsa. I'm going to be doing one in New York, going to be doing one in Philly. And so go to my website, darastartucker.com, and please buy tickets to those shows. And I will see you all really soon. Thank you, Teresa. Thank you, Joseph. I'll see you all.